Okay, Courtney, Steve here. I'm going to try and take a video of installing the kickstand spring onto the main stand. So just to go over that, first I'm going to point out again, we've got the upper kickstand spring support right here. It's just a big steel peg, sticks out the side of the engine. We've got that lower kickstand support, which is a piece of black painted steel. It's got a piece of a bit of a hook in it. And then the third part is this kickstand pin. Pointed out in your email that that seemed like it was kind of sticking out a little bit too far. You can kind of just tap that thing back in with the butt end of a screwdriver, a hammer, a mallet, anything like that. On the opposing side, there's going to be a hole in that large pin. The hole is drilled through, I'd say, through the side of the pin. It'd be like in this orientation. On that side, you want to just pass a piece of wire through that, like a cotter pin. That's what keeps this pin from moving side to side. I'll get a video of that towards the end. So first thing is, if you want to just tie off the center stand, I would just retract it all the way up and then tie off perhaps a piece of string or twine, mechanics wire, anything you got, perhaps between this hook and this hook. Some zip ties, any amount of wire ought to keep that thing upright. Otherwise, you got other options. For example, what might you have? There's this cable guide bracket right here. You could totally just tie off between the meat of the center stand and that guy. The kickstand pin itself, so this pin runs all the way through the engine. It goes out the other side. It's exposed. It's exposed on the other underside of the engine. You could tie off this chunk of meat on that center stand directly to the pin, which is, again, it's exposed on the other underside of the engine. So again, the good news is I think you got some options. There's plenty of, use a little bit of creativity, twine, rope, mechanics wire, zip ties, and you ought to be able to get this thing fastened up in a way that'll keep it off the road, so at least you can get back out and ride. And then the side stand will be your kickstand of choice until we get that repaired. If you want to actually try and reinstall this kickstand spring, it's a bit tricky. You can try it if you want. Again, I'd put on gloves and wear eye protection because these springs can kind of shoot off if you're not too careful. What I recommend doing is you'll seat the kickstand spring on the upper mount, and then you'll see obviously we're like an inch short from getting that lower spring hook onto the lower kickstand mount. There's no way you're going to be able to just stretch that by hand and get it seated on that lower hook. So what you need to do instead is you kind of got to pry it on, which is a little tricky. Again, I'll use a Phillips head screwdriver. Now that I've seated the spring on the upper hook support, I'm just going to kind of rest the spring on the shaft of the screwdriver and then put the lower end of the screwdriver into the lower spring support. See how I lost it there? Gonna start over again. Seat that. Rest that on the shaft. And then I'm trying to pry that. See how when I pry this, take some muscle. I'm actually gonna pry that against that lower spring support. And here we go, that actually worked. So I've done that a bunch of times, so it's made to look easy, but it can be done. You notice how this spring hook is not quite fully seated on that groove? I'm just gonna bop that a couple times with the butt end of the screwdriver until I get it really nicely into that groove. That looks pretty good to me. Again, enough tapping and that spring hook will sit right into that groove for you. So it is doable. Again, you got to be a little careful. If that spring lets go, it tends to shoot off. And again, at worst, okay, sure, I'm just being kind of safety first. It could hit you in the eye. It can hit you in the hand. It can kind of sting. So try and just pry that thing confidently if you're going to do it. So that's my advice for you. Let me know if that helps, and I'm happy to walk you through it. Thank you.